To install the front roof light bar mounting kit on your Polaris XPEDITION, follow these steps. Note that some features and accessories shown may not be present on all models and may not represent production vehicles. Park the vehicle on a flat level surface. Ensure it is in park and remove the key. Start by disconnecting the battery by removing and keeping the 2 screws from the front of the driver's seat base. Next, lift the front of the seat and pull forward to remove. Then, turn the screw to open the battery cover. Now, disconnect the negative cable from the battery. To remove the grill, turn each stud 1/4 turn to release. Next, pull the top of the grill forward and then lift up. Then pull the rubber straps off the hooks to release the hood. Lift up to remove. For vehicles equipped with a tip-out windshield, open the windshield and support the weight of the windshield while using the appropriate tool to release the clip at the lower end of the gas spring. Use care when releasing the clip. The clip may spring away from the fitting and may strike objects or become lost. Next, disconnect the bottom of the gas springs and remove the 2 screws and ball stud from the lower A-pillar trim panel. Then, pull the A-pillar trim piece away from the vehicle and set it aside. Repeat on the other side. Then remove the 3 screws and washers from the windshield base and set it aside. To remove the panel, start by removing and keeping the 2 push-pin rivets from the center dash panel. Next, remove and keep the panel by lifting the front edge and moving backward. To remove the head unit, start by removing and keeping the 2 push-pin rivets from the top of the head unit. Next, pull the top of the head unit away from the dash and lift to remove from the dash. Then, disconnect the wiring harness and antenna from the head unit. Remove and set it aside. To remove the dash cover, start by removing the 4 dash vent covers. Use a pry tool to remove each vent cover. Make sure the white clips on the back of the vent covers do not become lost. Next, remove 1 screw at each side of the dash cover. The door will need to be fully opened to access and remove these screws. Removal of these screws allows cover to be pulled open in the next step to remove the push-pin rivet. Then remove the A-pillar outer cover to gain better access to the dash push-pin rivet. Repeat on the other side. Now, carefully pull the plastic cover away from the lower A-pillar area and remove 1 push-pin rivet from the side of the dash cover. Then remove and keep the screws and washers at the front of the dash cover. Next, open the glove box and remove the 4 push-pin rivets from the passenger side of the dash cover. Now remove the 2 push-pin rivets from the driver's side of the dash cover. Next, if the vehicle is equipped with upper tweeters, make sure to unplug the tweeters when removing the dash cover. Then lift up and forward to remove the dash cover. Lift up on the front center of the dash to disengage 2 radio retention tabs. For vehicles with rear speakers, start by disconnecting the wiring harness from the rear speaker. Then remove and keep the 2 screws. Remove the speaker and set it aside. Repeat on the other side. To remove the front roof liner, start by removing and saving the 2 screws and the rear view mirror assembly. Next, remove and keep the 2 screws to uninstall the dome light. Then disconnect the dome light from the wiring harness, keep and set it aside. Now remove and save the 6 screws from the top of the roof liner and 4 screws from the front of the roof liner. Next, remove the front roof liner and set it aside. To remove the front roof screws, start by removing and keeping the 5 screws from the front underside of the roof. Then remove and keep the 3 screws, spacers, and washers from each side of the roof. Next, remove and keep the 3 weld nuts from each side of the roof underside. Now use an object to prop up the corner of the roof. Next, carefully remove the side cover near the opening at the ROP's bottom. Next, to install the harness, start by routing the harness through the upper grommet. Feed it through the dash and bring it across towards the opening in the lower ROPs on the driver's side. Then attach a wire to the harness and feed into the ROPs, pulling gently towards the opening at the top of the ROPs. Use caution to avoid damaging the harness connector. Next, feed the wiring harness through the ROP's A-pillar while watching for the end to appear in the opening above the driver's side window area and pull through the opening in the ROPs. A pick or hook can be used to help pull the end of the harness through the opening. Now, pull the harness through the A-pillar until connectors at the dashboard end of the harness line up. Then secure the harness to the frame with push dart clips. Reference the written instructions for exact locations. Push harness push darts into holes at locations 3 and 11. Push push dart clips for relay into hole at position L. Then connect the harness to the Polaris pulse bar. Next, remove the switch cover from the appropriate opening in the dash and pull the harness through the opening. Then connect the switch to the harness and pull the switch into the opening until it seats with an audible click. Now clip the harness to the mounting point behind the head unit in the opening. Reference the written instructions for exact locations. To prepare the roof for the light bar mounting, start by locating the 2 dimples on the 2 eyebrow features on the roof. Drill a hole at each dimple. Be careful to control the drill depth to avoid damage to the vehicle. Next, locate the drill point for the grommet behind the driver's side eyebrow feature and drill a pilot hole at this location. Next, the light bar kit will contain a grommet. Measure the grommet to determine the needed hole size. The grommet may already be installed on the light bar wiring harness. Then, be sure to use the appropriately sized drill or hole saw to expand the grommet pilot hole to the correct size for the grommet. Before assembling brackets, refer to your light bar kit instructions for proper mounting procedures. Next, to assemble the brackets for the 32-inch light bar, start by assembling the hardware, which includes a bolt, a rubber washer, and a nut to each side of the light bar. For vehicles with a tip-out glass windshield, you will have hinges at the upper mounting holes. Light bar mounts will share the upper mounting holes with the windshield hinges. Reference the written instructions for your specific windshield application. Now, close the tip-out glass windshield and remove 1 nut and 1 screw from the upper hinge mounting. Then, install a carriage screw, tubular spacer, washer plate, 3mm spacer, and the bracket. Rotate the washer plate so that the other screw can be removed later. The tubular spacer will pass through the hole drilled in the roof. Now, install 1 nut. Do not torque at this time. Next, remove the other nut from the original mounting hardware, as well as the carriage screw from the window. Then line up the washer plate with the remaining hole and install a carriage screw, tubular spacer, and a 3mm spacer. Now install a nut and tighten both nuts to specification. Repeat steps for the other side. Next, push the Lightbar wiring harness through the hole and place the grommet around the Lightbar harness and install the grommet into the hole. It may be necessary to slit the grommet to enable the harness connector to fit through the grommet. Now zip tie an edge clip to the harness and attach the harness to the roof. To reinstall the roof, remove any objects that were used to prop up the roof. Make sure the roof lays flat on the vehicle. Next, install 3 weld nuts on each side of the roof underside. On 2-passenger vehicles, the rear nut on each side will need to be held in place while starting screws in the nut. All other nuts will be held in place by brackets on the ROPs. Now, install 3 washers, spacers, and screws on each side of the roof. Tighten screws to specification. Then install 5 screws in the underside of the roof. Torque screws to specification. To install the front roof liner, begin by installing 6 screws in the top of the roof liner and 4 screws in the front of the roof liner. Torque screws to specification. Vehicles that are equipped with a rear view mirror will have a 5th screw at the front of the roof liner. Also, 2-passenger cab vehicles will have 3 additional screws near the rear of the roof liner. Next, connect the wiring harness to the dome light and install with 2 screws. Torque screws to specification. Now, install the rear view mirror assembly and 2 screws. Torque screws to specification. To install the rear speakers, start by connecting the wiring harness to the speaker. The top of the speaker has a shape that engages a space in the ROPs. Make sure the speaker is fully seated in the space before installing screws, and then use the kept screws and torque screws to specification. Then, reinstall the dash cover and connect the tweeter speakers. Now, install 5 screws and washers in the top of the dash and 2 pushpin rivets on each side of the dash cover. Then, install 4 pushpin rivets on the passenger side of the dash cover above the glove box. Next, install the 4 dash vent covers. Then, install 1 pushpin rivet at each side of the dash. Now, install 1 screw on each side of the dash and torque to specification. To reinstall the head unit, start by connecting the wiring harness and antenna to the head unit. And then put the bottom of the head unit into position and push the top of the head unit into the dash. Next, install 2 pushpin rivets into the top of the head unit. To reinstall the center dash panel, start by inserting the rear tabs into the dash, then lowering it into position. Then, install 2 push-pin rivets. If your vehicle is equipped with a tip-out windshield, install the windshield base, 3 screws and 3 washers. Tighten screws to specification. Next, attach the outer A-pillar trim piece and install a push-pin rivet. To reinstall the lower A-pillar trim, start by putting the trim in position at the base of the A-pillar. Then install 2 screws and torque to specification. For vehicles equipped with a tip-out windshield, put the lower A-pillar trim in position at the base of the A-pillar and install the ball stud and torque to specification. Next, return the clip at the bottom of the gas spring to the engaged position and connect. Then, close the tip-out windshield. To reinstall the hood and grille, start by putting the tabs on the hood through the openings in the underhood liner. Then lower the hood into position. Next, pull the rubber straps down over the hooks to secure it. Then, put the tabs on the grille through the openings in the front fascia and push the top of the grille into proper position. Now, push each stud in and turn 1/4 turn clockwise to secure the grille. To reconnect the battery, start by connecting the negative cable to the battery. Then push the battery cover rearward and lower it into place. Then turn the screw to close the cover. Next, push rearward to engage the seat and lower the front of the seat into place. Now install the 2 kept screws at the front of the seat base. Torque screws to specification. Finally, test the light bar by pressing the top of the light bar switch. To adjust the light bar, loosen the mounting screw on each end. Adjust as desired and retighten screw to specification. For more information, see your authorized Polaris dealer or visit Polaris.com.